All right. So thanks, Craig, for being here. Can
Oh,
you
no problem.
briefly introduce yourself? Tell us about your role and your business, Tree of Life Services.
So Tree of Life Services is essentially a living trust service. We prepare and provide living trusts for mostly the Hispanic community. In addition to writing living trusts, we also do corporations and limited liability companies. And under certain circumstances, primarily with real estate investors, we prepare what are called title holding trusts, which allows for um, um, multiple multiple investors to purchase a property under a single name.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
so let's get into those different services you offer. Before
sure.
that, can you share with us some background about yourself, or where were you born and grew up, and
Sure.
education?
I was born in Alhambra, grew up in Alhambra. Then my dad was transferred for work to the Bay Area.
Hmm.
Worked in the Bay, lived in the Bay Area for a few years. Came back down here in the mid 70s. I've been here ever since. Currently live in Covina. Um, and my background is I'm a basically a semi-retired lawyer. Started Was admitted to practice in 92. Basically stopped practicing in 2017 because I was taking care of my mother-in-law who had developed Alzheimer's. Um, and then my business partner in Tree of Life Services, Patty Kelly, contacted me in 2018, 2019 about offering living trusts. So she and I have been running it now for the last couple years.
Okay. Okay. Great. Great. So you were an attorney, and so as
Yeah,
an
was,
attorney,
yeah.
you worked in providing these
We
services.
did. My practice consisted primarily of real estate and probate litigation. So I was general counsel for about three or four little real estate offices and was defending and dealing with various claims against them. And then we did a fair amount of probate litigation, and a little bit of bankruptcy and that type of thing. But that
Okay.
was 80% of the practice was
Okay.
probates, real estate, and then living trusts.
I see. I see. Okay. So what is the primary service that Tree of Life Services, more often than not, you provide?
E- 85% of our business is preparing living trusts.
Okay.
And what a living trust is under current federal income tax, or excuse me, estate tax rules, are it's a probate avoiding device.
Mhm.
Um, Currently, the federal estate tax exemption is high enough that it's academic unless you're, Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. So really nobody on a practical level has to worry about that. Um, Probate is the time-consuming ripoff that you've heard it is. It takes in LA County, it takes a minimum of a year, and the cost because of the price of housing now easily run into into the mid 30s now by the time everybody gets paid and the court costs are paid.
Okay. So let's just go slow right now. Uh,
Sure.
when someone dies, um, they have property. Now
Right,
that
right.
property is gonna go to their heirs, right, or who they deem.
Correct. So
So what? First of all, what's probate?
all right, so probate is the court procedure to transfer your stuff, your estate to your heirs.
Okay. So
And
so does
tip
that mean, like, because you haven't designated who's getting what, or why do you think why do people have to have probate?
uh, it, it- Virtually all the probates I deal with follow this scenario. Mom and dad purchased a property as husband and wife as joint tenants. And the way that joint tenancy works in California is if something happens to one of the joint tenants, the other gets it automatically. The other receives the property automatically by operation of law.
Hmm.
You don't need to have a will, you don't need to have a trust, you don't need to do anything. It just happens. So at that point, statistically, dad dies first, mom doesn't do anything. So now you have mom as basically the sole owner of the property. When she dies, there's nobody alive to authorize transfer. So then you go to probate, which is a court process in California.
Okay, and you talked about how that could cost up to 30 grand and it takes up to how long?
Correct. The when I was doing it, LA let me back up. Virtually all of my practice is in LA County, Orange County, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. Um, Back in the day, when I was a young guy actually, going to court, LA County was divided into districts, and each district had a probate court. So if you knew what you were doing and you followed the timeline correctly, you could get a probate done in between 9 months and a year. About 10 or 15 years ago, they closed all of the outlying probate courts, and now everything is heard in downtown Los Angeles and in Lancaster. So because everything has been consolidated into the middle, the runtime to get hearing dates and things like that takes a lot longer. The court costs are fixed. I mean, they're set fees for whatever it is. What kills people nowadays is under California law, if it goes to probate, the probate attorney and then the administrator of the estate, which is the person who's handling the estate on a day-to-day basis, is entitled to a statutory fee. Um, when a house is $300,000, the statutory fee is livable. Okay. Now the median price of a house in LA County, I think, is approaching $750,000.
No, it's above that.
So
It's an
yeah,
eight
it's more
hundred.
than that now. Okay, great. So the probate fee is computed on
Yes.
$750,000, and that's why you get, 20 to $30,000 probate
Okay.
fees.
So you identified two people, the
Mhm.
administrator of the estate and the
There's an attorney and the
attorney.
and
Okay.
the administrator.
Okay. Now
Uh,
the administrator, that is not, you said they're running the day-to-day affairs of the estate.
the the
It's not a
adminis
family member.
the administrator normally is a family member,
Okay.
and that is the person that is designated by the family or steps up to collect the estate, sign the documents, do all of that sort of thing.
Okay. So
And
they if they want have a fee that they can charge their
if they
family.
want, they have a fee. Now, a lot of
Okay.
times, to be fair, a lot of times they do waive it, but they have an absolute right to get paid they get paid exactly the same as the attorney gets paid.
Okay. And then how is it determined who that is?
Normally, it is a family decision. If there is nobody in the family, there are professionals that will do that.
Mhm.
Um, but they need to be appointed by the court. That is very unusual. Normally, they find a son or a daughter or somebody to
Okay.
step up and
And
administer it.
what's the percentage they are entitled to?
Figure it's 5% of the gross value of the estate.
Wow, that's not
Yeah,
bad.
it's not bad. It's
Okay.
not bad. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so uh it sounds like you are helping people to avoid this lengthy, time-consuming process,
Right. So
right?
we prepare what's called a revocable living trust. And unless there is a very compelling reason, and all our trusts are revocable living trusts. So for a flat fee, you move the property into the trust. So title of the property shifts from mom and dad, husband and wife, to mom and dad trustees of the mom and dad trust.
Okay.
That document gets recorded. So when they die, the property technically is owned by the trust. So within the document, they will appoint a successor trustee. And again, 99% of the time, it's one of the kids. And then the appointed successor trustee steps in and administers the trust.
Okay. Now, when that transfer is made to the revocable living trust, mom and dad put the property to the trust.
Mhm.
Is there a reappraisal of the property?
No, under current California law, they transfers to or from a living trust is exempt. That does not mean that you will get it. That does not mean that the assessor's office will not send you a letter that says, Talk to me about this. But nearly all of the time, you literally mail them a copy of the trust and they go away. Um, most of the trusts are written, it's mom and dad trustees of the mom and dad trust.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
deviate from that, and every once in a while somebody will want like a special name for it, if
Mhm.
you name it like the Snallygagger Trust, you're going to get a letter from the assessor's office as to what's going on.
Okay, okay. So then you're passing the property down to your heirs. Mom
Hmm.
and dad are passing it to the other people named in the trust.
Right.
And when they do put the property into the trust, they're not having a penalty of higher taxes because they changed the
Correct.
title of the property, as
Correct.
would normally happen. And
Right.
so besides avoiding probate, what would you say are some other are there are there other advantages to having a property in a revocable trust?
The other main advantage is a function of privacy. If a wills if you go to probate or if your will is admitted into probate, that's a matter of public record. And if you want to look around on the internet, Elvis Presley's will is available because that was probated in Memphis. Marilyn Monroe's will is available on Google because that was administered here in LA County.
Okay, so it's
So
private.
that's what you're avoiding.
Okay, all right. Now let's just say I name some family members into the trust, and then some family members I get on the outs with, and now I don't want them to. Um, just out of curiosity, I don't want them to get the benefit of my inheritance. Can I?
So the trusts that we write typically are amendable, meaning that you call me and we make an amendment and add or remove people or add or
Okay,
remove properties. Now that's fairly common.
okay, okay. And then so how's that different from an irrevocable living trust? That's
Irrevocable
yeah.
trusts create a separate legal entity which has to have its own taxpayer identification number. The main purpose for irrevocable trusts for most people is they're holding some sort of retirement benefit or life insurance benefit where you have either income tax issues or potentially estate tax issues.
Okay, can you give us a scenario, for example? Like,
Sure. When I first started doing this, the federal estate tax exemption was $600,000. Okay. So what would happen is if you had an estate of $1.5 million or more, basically, you could buy a life insurance policy specifically designed to pay the estate tax that we knew was coming up. Because you could compute the estate tax that would be owing pretty accurately within about 98%.
yeah, but
So you would
your property increases in value over time, so every year the amount is going to change, right?
Well, yeah, you basically you add, you figure out the anticipated lifespan, add, and remember at this time properties were going up, 2 to 3% a year, not, 2 to 3% a week, like we just went through. So you could compute it pretty accurately, and you'd go to like, Sun Life or something and buy a life insurance policy. That would be held in an irrevocable trust because it was outside of the tax estate. The owner of the life insurance policy would drop dead. Sun Life would write a check. You write the check to the IRS, and everybody's covered. That's the most common. Um, there are certain retirement plans because there are some people out there that have accumulated a huge amount of money in their retirement plans um, where that can be handled by an islet again to get it out of the taxable estate.
Okay, okay. So if I'm going to and let's say I'm thinking about this, the reason I would do an a irrevocable living trust would be because I want to prepay the taxes that are going to come onto the estate. That's
Yeah,
the reason.
correct.
That's
99% of irrevocable trust is you're dealing with some kind of tax issue. I want to emphasize that right now in March of 2024, because of the estate tax exemption, it is academic for all but fairly wealthy people.
okay.
So
Okay.
there's not a compelling interest for it.
Okay.
And then the other thing that irrevocable trusts are used for is every once in a while you'll run across a paranoiac who's afraid they're going to get sued. So if you do an irrevocable trust in advance, you can move some of your assets into kind of a protected class, but that needs to be done in advance. So like for example, you do an irrevocable trust the day after your car accident, it's not going to do you any good. So it
No,
needs to be done
but
well in advance.
that sounds like a big advantage if you have lawsuit protection. That sounds like a huge.
It can be. And the hot thing now is the Delaware Statutory Trust, which a lot of apartment building owners are doing. I don't do that kind of thing. And if you're watching this, I want to emphasize this is not something you do the day after your car accident. This is something you do well in advance when you have nobody coming after you. You
Okay.
haven't received a letter from an attorney. You haven't been sued.
Okay.
Because
So
once you do it after the triggering event, it becomes a fraudulent conveyance, which is a whole nother can of worms.
okay. And so but anyway, that just sounds like a very positive thing,
Hmm.
advantage of an irrevocable living trust
Right.
that if I get in a car accident, they can sue me, but they can't go after my property that's in the trust.
Yeah, but again, and if you take away nothing from this portion of the conversation, it has to be done in advance. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, being that that's a huge advantage, these are just questions coming to my head.
Sure.
What would be the price difference of the two?
The irrevocable trust normally runs 3 to 4 times what a normal living trust does.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is basically exposure from exposure and protection for the person writing the irrevocable trust. Um, if you were to come to me to do this, I'd run a credit report, I'd run a background check. I want to make sure that what you're telling me is true, because if I write the thing based just on what you're saying, I get sucked into it as a fraudulent conveyance, which is not a pleasant experience.
Hmm. Okay.
I've never done it, but I've talked to a couple people that got sucked into that, and it's not pretty.
Okay. Okay. So the irrevocable living trust sounds like it benefits the current owner, right?
It it can. It can.
It can,
Yeah.
and it sounds like the revocable, no, the revoc.
Yeah, for mom and dad purposes, and for people
Yes,
that own one house or maybe a house and a rental, standard vanilla revocable living trust works just fine.
just fine.
If you're getting more complex, you own apartment buildings or something like that, you want to look at something with a higher level of
Okay.
protection.
Now, what's the number of properties that you would recommend moving from a revocable to an irrevocable?
Um, it's going to there's no one set number. The way it normally is structured is if you've got properties, you want to go to whoever your your casualty insurance company is, your fire insurance company, and you want to buy an umbrella policy. Because those aren't a lot of money. They're in when the last time I looked at quotes, they were in the $500 to $600 a year range, which is cheap. Now because
Fire
of
insurance on you're talking about, this is not fire insurance.
no, this is what's called an umbrella policy.
Okay.
And the way to think of it is you've got your basic fire insurance. Then the next step up is you buy an umbrella, which is reinsurance or additional insurance, and that's going to cover you have you have it, there's an intentional act. You have a party and somebody throws a beer bottle and breaks somebody's head with it. You're sued for you're sued for an auto accident and you don't have sufficient coverage in your auto insurance policy, that type of thing. The best example of an umbrella that most people would be familiar with is remember the O.J. Simpson civil lawsuit where he got the $32 million judgment.
I
He
I remember. Yes, I
Okay.
remember.
Okay, yeah. So there was the O.J. Simpson criminal trial, which everybody remembers,
Yeah,
and that was followed by the O.J. Simpson civil trial, where the Goldman family got a judgment against him. The the lawyers that were defending him in that lawsuit were paid for by his umbrella policy. So that's one way of doing it. Um, Umbrella policies run the last time I priced them into five to $600 a year policy because it's unusual to get to it, so they can drop the price. You reach, depending on the insurance policy, a limit on how many properties they will issue the umbrella policy for. That's when you want to look at other alternatives.
I see. I see. Okay. So you do trusts. You said you also assist with probate, right?
We can do probate, sure.
Okay. And then what does that uh entail for the heirs or for the people involved?
It's basically it's a lot of forms. There's there's basically a what's called the Judicial Council, which is a state issued form for virtually everything. You fill out the form, you file it with the court, you wait the requisite number of days, the judge deals with it, and then you go to the next step, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
Um, the best way to think of probate, graphically is it's like an inchworm. You start in the inchworm does this, then it curls up and it does this, and it just moves systematically down the pile. The so it's unless there is a fight within the heirs, it's manageable. But it's tricky because there's all kinds of little nuanced rules.
I see. Okay. And so those are the main services. Any other services that are important that we
We
should know
we
about?
form if you're interested in forming corporations or limited liability companies, we do that as well.
Okay. All right. And then for someone who has property, what's your, I guess, advice to them? Let's say we have four properties.
Okay.
What do you recommend we do?
All right. First step number one is set up a trust. Okay. So your criteria for setting up a trust, if you own real property in California, you need a trust. Okay. Number two is if you own real property in other states, except Louisiana, you need that property in a trust as well. And trust can reach across state lines, and you can move the out-of-state property into a trust. Um, Having properties in Arizona and Nevada and Texas is surprisingly common for Californians, and all that can be handled under one trust.
Okay. And then how much does that, what's the price, the range of prices it could
So the
potentially be here?
the price typically for the trust start in about the $1,500 range.
Mhm.
And then the additional fees would be for each additional property. Um, and there's in California, if it's a rental property, you're paying the base recording fee, which normally is in the $20 to $30 range. And then you also have to pay the SB2 property fee, which is I think $75 a parcel.
Okay.
And then different states have different recording fees.
Okay.
Um, and that so you have to factor that in.
And then,
Arizona is cheap, Oregon is expensive, just for
okay.
for recording purposes.
And what do you recommend for me? Should I get a revocable or an irrevocable?
I
Irrevocable.
for you, I would get a garden variety revocable living trust. Okay. And then so your other three properties are rentals.
Yes.
Okay, who has your fire insurance for your house you live in?
They're different ones. They're different ones.
Okay. So what I would do is I would call the agent for the rental properties and ask them what they charge for an umbrella policy.
I see.
And the revocable living trust is going to protect your family if something happens to you.
So,
The umbrella policy is going to protect them if the tenant has a party and wipes the place out.
okay, in the revocable living trust, each property is going to be in the name of the revocable living trust.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And I'm just thinking, and then when it comes time, let's just say in the future I want to refinance, there's no issue with that, right?
Um, Theoretically,
If I wanted to,
yeah, theoretically, you can refinance the property as the trustee of the living trust. Okay. Having said that, I've never seen it done. So what ends up happening is the trust is pulled out, the property's pulled out of the trust, it's refinanced in your name, and then either the escrow company is on the ball and moves it back into the trust,
hmm
or I get a phone call from you and I move it back into the trust.
I see. So this is a quick what I want to.
It's basically it's quick claimed out and it's quick claimed back in.
Okay. All right. And so sounds like a pretty good service you're providing. What motivated you? I know you said your partner came to you, but what motivated you to establish this business really?
Um,
Besides the
my my
fact that she,
my partner Patty recognized a need for estate planning services within the Latino community, and she's very she grew up in East LA, El Sereno, is fluent in Spanish, and discovered that most Latinos, when they did their estate planning, it consisted of adding kids to the deed as joint tenants. So if the property needed to be sold or refinanced, you didn't have mom and dad's signature that you had to get. You had 13 people whose signature you had to get.
Mhm.
And that's something that can easily be done by a living trust with only, one or two signatures.
I see.
So that's what drove us, and that's how we got involved in the business.
Okay. And then you're part of the El Sereno Chamber of Commerce.
Right.
How did you decide to promote these services in this community?
Because Patty lives about 10 minutes from where you meet every month.
Hey, 10 minutes, that's farther than me. Just kidding. All right. And then how did you guys come up with the name Tree of Life Services for the
That's
business?
that was Patty.
That's Patty.
That
Okay.
that was that was Patty. It was if left to me, I have no imagination for this thing. It'd be like Craig and Patty's Trust Service. So yeah.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
that's her.
That's good. Good. So I'll definitely put your contact information, but how can people contact you? I'll put it in the bottom of the videos, but how can they,
The
what's the best way to reach out to you?
the easiest way is by telephone. And Patty's phone number for if you speak Spanish is 323-944-9204. And my telephone number is 714-474-1652. And then if you want to do an email, the email address is info@treeoflifeservices.net.
Okay. And then do you guys have a website or anything? Or
We do, but it's being translated from English to Spanish, so it's offline right now.
oh, right now. Okay. Do you have
Yeah.
social media at all or?
n- every once in a while, Patty posts a TikTok, but I don't deal with any of that.
I will. I'll post it for sure.
Okay.
Seriously. So then, yeah, I'll put the website if you give it to me on the things that people can
Sure.
look at it. Probably by the time they see the video, it'll probably be up and running.
Okay.
Go to it.
Yeah, I
So,
will I will double check the URL for the website and shoot it over to you.
okay.
Because
And
I
then,
talked to the web guy yesterday. He says, no, it's offline. Okay.
okay. All right. And then the intake process. Let's just say I call you. I call
hmm
you. What's the process next after the phone call? We talk on the phone.
Typically, we arrange a meeting. You either can come into our office. Our office is in Downey.
Mhm.
Um, or we can meet in your home if you want to do that. I actually prefer meeting in the home because that's where the paperwork is.
I
So if
see.
I want to see a copy of a deed or a property tax bill, it's there.
I see.
Um, we meet with you. We go through the process, explain in more detail what a trust does, some of the other things that are included in the package, talk about how you want your disposition to take place, um, kind of work out any other nuances or details that you're interested in. We leave. It takes about 10 days to 2 weeks to prepare the documents. We then meet again, sign the documents, and the trust is now, fully created at that point and good to go.
Okay. And what would you say might be some hesitations why someone may not you know, take advantage of this service that benefits the heirs and could potentially benefit the mom and dad.
Most of the time it's ignorance in that they don't know it exists or they don't know that it's available to them
I
because
see.
they've heard that trusts basically only work for, rich people, and that is not the case. Every once in a while you'll run across somebody where the cost is an issue. And we can work with people if you need to make like payments or something like that, that can be arranged.
Okay. And beyond your professional endeavors, what are some of your personal interests outside of your business?
I am active in the Boy Scouts, and I am actually taking a group of 18 people to a place called Philmont Scout Ranch, which is in the New Mexico mountains up by the Colorado border this summer. Really looking forward to that. It's absolutely gorgeous. Do a lot of hiking and backpacking, and then I read a lot.
That's great. That's great. And what final message do you have for our viewers here on social media?
If you own a house in California and you know who you are, and it's not in a living trust, it needs to be in a living trust
And
because
the reason
the
is,
the reason is probate is time consuming and as expensive as you've heard it is, especially now given the price of housing.
okay,
There's no way around it.
okay. And I wish I had more opportunity to be involved in the El Sereno Chamber of Commerce, but who else do you think I should interview that you know, or outside of the chamber as well, someone that you feel more people in El Sereno, Los Angeles, LA County need to know about?
I would want to talk to Roxy from Roxy Taxes, who's a mover and shaker, and is a real dynamo. And then the guy that runs the Garfield Boosters, and I'm blanking on his name, has got some great stories. And I'll
Okay.
try to find you his business card and shoot you his contact information. Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Because
definitely
he literally is, I don't think he's gone more than 6 blocks from Garfield High School in his life, but he
oh
knows
wow.
everybody and has got some great stories.
All right. I appreciate your time and thanks for being here. It's been a good sport. Appreciate
No
everybody.
worries. Thank you
All
for
right,
your
man.
time.
Sure.